Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, monimuli wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so wicked happy that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show, and please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. Our guest today is our Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson, celebrating space care. Before we invite our Admiral of Adventure into the studio, we want to invite you to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. So much there. Of course, you can check out our blog and read our latest Reading with Your Kids certified great read reviews and catch up on the news. And also download our free Reading with Your Kids magazine. We are really excited about this. It's a new project. It is growing. We have some really amazing content in the magazine right now. We'd love to add some more, but we'd also love to find out what you would like to see in a Reading with Your Kids magazine. So check it out. Use the contact button at the top of the page. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you would love to see included into the magazine. And also let us know what you'd love happening more in the podcast. Join us right now from one of my favorite cities in the entire world, Jacksonville in Florida. Our guest is returning to the show today to celebrate her brand new book. It's called Space Care. Please welcome back to the show the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, the Admiral of Adventure, Jennifer Swanson. Hey, Jen.
Hello. Hey, Jed. How are you? I'm so thrilled to be back on your show.
I am delighted that I could give you that introduction again. I miss doing that so much. It's great to have you back on, and I'm so excited you have a new book out called Space Care. Tell us all about it.
Yes, it's amazing. It's Space Care, a kid's guide to surviving space. Right? And and the cool thing is this is one of the first books that Mayo Clinic Press Kids is putting out in conjunction with Smithsonian Institution. So I got to talk about two things, or I guess I should say write about two things that I love: space and medicine.
Ooh.
So you may not know this about me, which is crazy because we've had so many chats, but when I was in high school, that was when Sally Ride went into space. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I had wanted to be a pediatrician from the time I was 9. But when I was 16 or 17, when she went into space, I decided I wanted to be, are you ready? The first organ transplant surgeon female astronaut.
Yeah. Yeah. Give yourself some good goals.
Clearly, we don't have one of those yet because we can't perform organ transplants in space.
Not yet.
But,
Not yet.
Yet. But when I was asked to write this book, I was just like, yes, this is right up my alley. This is what I do, space and medicine.
Well, when you think about it, at some point in the not too distant future, we're going to be having organ transplants in space. Because if we're living in space, if we're traveling to places where it's going to take us years to get to,
yes,
something, you're going to have to come up there with a suitcase full of organs and blood and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're probably a little bit further out from that because, even being the medicine in space is we're still learning so much about it. But, the cool thing about this book was I actually got to interview astronaut Megan MacArthur, which was very cool. You know me, I was like a total space geek. But she talked about how astronauts go up in space and we think of them as explorers, right? Like they're pushing the envelope and floating around in microgravity. But did you also know that they're kind of like guinea pigs?
Until I was part of the Solve It for Kids podcast, I did not have any
Yes.
idea. But now I've learned a little bit, and I've come to realize that going up into space really kind of messes with you.
It does. It does. And that's what this book talks all about, is it talks about how the fluids in your body kind of rise up, right? Because you don't have gravity pushing them down. So if you see the astronauts on their face looks a little fuller, that the fluid's up there, but that can cause, not always, problems. It pushes on your eyeballs, and it can affect your vision temporarily while you're in space. Your heart pumps the fluids and the blood around your body very differently when you're in space. One thing I didn't know is almost everybody that goes into space for the first time gets space sickness, like car sick, because your brain doesn't know which way's up and down. Remember when we had Katie Coleman on the Solve for Kids show, and she was talking about how you never know if it's up or down when you're in space? Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. And something that happens to astronauts too that I'm too familiar with at the moment is all your muscles kind of atrophy because you're not dealing with gravity, and so you don't need all those muscles, and you get back down to Earth and they're going, why aren't my muscles working the right way?
Yeah, so that's why they work out like 2.5 to 3 hours a day. But the funny thing is they have to strap themselves in to the treadmill, because we just get on a treadmill and go. But they actually have to strap themselves in and kind of push themselves down on it so they stay walking or running on it. It's pretty wild, all the things that they do. But they also have to take their own blood. Ew.
Yeah.
Could you do that? I don't know that I could do that.
Well, I've been doing things the last couple of months that I had no idea I'd be doing.
Well, that's true.
Including injecting myself. So it's like,
see, there you go. Yeah, you might be able to do that.
When you're talking about the treadmill, I had this image of a guy on a bicycle with, that get his hands on the handlebars, but his legs start floating up, and so the legs are going like this above his head.
If you don't strap your feet into the bicycle, it can do that, right?
Yeah.
It's just so cool, all of the different things I got to learn about. And all of the different kinds of research that they're doing up there. They're learning about how your heart behaves in microgravity. They're learning about all of these different things, about your muscles. They learned, unfortunately, you can get blood clots in space, and kind of what to do with that, and how difficult it can be to sleep in space, because, when we lay down in a bed, right? And you can feel the bed because it's pushing back on you. But in space, you just lay yourself sideways, but you don't even feel like you're laying sideways, right? Wouldn't that be weird?
Yeah. Well, I remember Katie told us you have to strap yourself in.
Yeah.
So you can sleep.
But she said she used to free sleep on occasion. Remember that? Yeah. And she said one time she woke up and she was under her desk.
I did. And those conversations you can find on Jennifer's amazing podcast, Solve It for Kids. And boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'm delighted that you have this book and we're having this conversation, and we had those conversations with Katie because, when I watch Star Trek or Star Wars, we're seeing these characters interact in space, but it's like they're walking around in an office building. It's like no one's strapped into anything. You're just kind of walking around. How you doing? Nice to see you. My muscles feel great. I can do this. I can do that. I don't need to inject myself, and I don't need to, get the water evaporated off my sweaty clothes so that I can have, none of that stuff is happening. And so I think a lot of kids, especially kids out there, they might be looking at that and going, going into space and the Space Center is just like that. I can, go to the holodeck and play tennis with, an image.
Yes. Not yet, but, and that's so funny because yesterday I was at, a library program. I do summer readings. I was doing my brain games program, And I had taken this book, and the two adult librarians just practically like snatched it out of my hand, and they were reading this book like, oh my gosh, like you can do this and you can do that. Look, this is how you go to the bathroom. Look at this. It's like, so that's what this book is. It's set up like my astronaut aquanaut book, if you remember that, with lots of cool pictures of astronauts doing things. But it's chock full of information. So you really kind of get the real deal about what it's like to be in space. And it kind of makes me go, yeah, I don't know if that's for me anymore.
Yeah. I think I want to wait around for the Star Trek version of space.
Oh yeah, I would do that. I would do that one.
I do that. And, mentioned, do I remember Astronaut Aquanaut? Is one of our first certified great reads. How can I forget that? And also that book, I think you came on, it was during the first year of the Reading with Your Kids podcast, so way back in 2017.
Yep.
And I remember you were kind enough to send me a couple of copies of the book. And I shared that with my wife's best friend, who was a principal at an urban school at the time. And she told me how blown away her kids at a Boston public school, how blown away her middle school kids were to see people who looked like them in these different STEM fields. And it was it really was that first year of doing the Reading with Your Kids podcast. I launched the podcast because I knew that the bond I have with my now adult kids started when they were on my lap and I was reading to them. And that's what I wanted to get across to parents, is to read with your kids so you have that bond. But there's so many other benefits. And certainly one of the benefits of reading with your kids or having books available for kids is so that they can see themselves portrayed in the pages of books or imagine themselves dealing with different situations, and reading space care and imagining themselves in space, how they would care for themselves and how they would deal with something that maybe isn't covered in space care. Like what happens when you lose an arm, or an alien comes on and gives you COVID-37.
I'm sure NASA has all kinds of scenarios for that. But yeah, and that's really important, is that astronauts, or even being involved in the space program, is not just about being an astronaut, right? Mm-hmm. We need engineers, we need technicians, we need people who love PR, like who can write great press releases. We need technicians to work on spacecraft and all of these different things, mechanics, artists to create all of the amazing kind of pictures to help share space with everybody. And I think that's something that kids should remember, is that, yes, being an astronaut is way cool. You get to be an edge of the space explorer kind of thing. But think about all of the people who help get them there, And then when they go up there, it's kind of a selfless thing to take their blood and do EKGs on themselves and, ultrasounds, so that all of that information comes back here and doctors can learn more about humans and maybe use some of that to help humans here on Earth too.
Yeah, that really is amazing. One of the things that I loved about all of our conversations about space, and even love about those about Star Trek and Star Wars, is that it really does take a team. To get somebody in space takes a team. Not only the team that are on the spacecraft or in the International Space Station, but the engineers at home, the rocket scientists, the janitors who have to keep the place spotless, because you can't even have a speck of dust in some of those rooms, or it would just ruin everything.
Yes. Yeah, well, and they have clean rooms. So I was lucky enough a couple months ago, I was chosen for a NASA social event where I got to go to NASA Johnson Space Center and be in the room when they announced the Artemis II astronauts. And then I got to meet them afterwards. So the team of 4 astronauts that are going to go around the moon, hopefully at the end of 2024 or so in Artemis II, I got to meet them. I got to shake Christina Cook's hand, who's the first female astronaut that's going to go around there. And then we got to spend the whole next 2 days going to the neutral buoyancy lab, and we got to sit in the lunar rover and all of these things that are just amazing to share with kids and people of all ages and get them excited about it. But that's the one thing I learned is there's so many people at NASA. Like, we met planetary geologists, so they study rocks, but the rocks that came from Apollo, 11 moon landing, right? How cool is that?
Very cool. Jennifer, one of the things that I'm really disappointed about is that it seems that for a long time our interest in space and space exploration really kind of died off. I remember where I was when I heard on the car radio that we had just landed on the moon. And then we all raced home so we could see those first pictures of, Neil Armstrong climbing down the ladder and being misquoted forever. and the entire world was excited at that time. And we were excited about what Russia was doing. And there was a competition, but it was still, it's like, Russia had the first human beings in space. And whoa, that's crazy. Yes. And then it was kind of like we went for decades like going, people, oh, we're still going out into space? How did a generation lose interest in the stars?
Well, the thing is we built the International Space Station. So the ISS has been in existence for over 20 years. And I think when it first went up and we had the space shuttle, because I remember when the space shuttle program was active, and we would always watch it land and, take off, especially when it had to be carried on the big, huge 747 plane or, whatever. And then that program ended. But I think we've been in space for so long, it's just kind of become regular. Like, kids these days grew up going, oh yeah, we have astronauts in space. Oh yeah, okay, that's cool. And it wasn't until a few years ago, when the president decided we are going back to the moon. And then most importantly, they funded that.
Ah, yes.
See that? That little tiny thing? Funding.
Magical.
And because they funded it, all of a sudden it's getting way more exciting. And we are sort of in a space race right now, although I would argue it's probably more with China than Russia, because China's trying to do everything we're doing. But the exciting thing about now is it's not just the space agencies. We have SpaceX. We have all of these different places that are commercial organizations that are trying to go to space and are looking to go to space. And I think this is exciting. For me, the excitement is back. Is it back for kids? I don't know. Kind of depends on, what they're getting in school these days. I hope they're getting the excitement of the space exploration program.
Well, you bring up a good point, because thanks to books like Space Care, we celebrate here on the Reading with Your Kids podcast that parents are the first and most important teacher that a kid can have.
Absolutely.
And I'm not just talking about kids who are homeschooled. I'm talking about your kid is going to public school, Catholic school, private school. It doesn't matter. What you believe is important as a parent, what you share with your kids as a parent, what you're excited about. Your kids aren't always going to tell you that they dig it too, especially if they're teenagers. They're going to tell you that you're lame. But
well, yeah.
If they see that you are excited about something and you are sharing it with them, if you're sitting down with your kids and reading a book like Space Care or Astronaut and Aquanaut and talking to your kids and not lecturing them, but talking to the kids, asking your kids, what if? What do you think? Imagine you are out there. What would you do if this or that happened? That's going to get kids excited about space. And
Yes.
And at that point, it doesn't matter what they're teaching or not teaching in schools. You're teaching it. your values, you're instilling your values with your kids. And I think being interested in the world, the universe, is way, way, way important.
I agree. Completely, wholeheartedly. It's all about getting kids curious and allowing them to explore their curiosity about science, which is all around them. Like, you don't have to like space, but this book is also about medicine, or there's plenty of other books besides mine out there about trees and plants, and maybe you like koala bears, right? There's books about koala bears. Find some of those and let your kids kind of guide you, with their interests and their curiosity.
And you know something, Jennifer, I think that is really cool, and it's a difference from when we first spoke back in 2017.
What?
We're not jumping up and down and saying, make sure you read this with your girls, because girls can get interested in STEM too. We've kind of almost gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, of course, girls can be interested in STEM.
Of course.
Yeah. It's like a normal thing, and people are appreciating the fact that girls can be astronauts and girls can be scientists and girls can be part of this amazing space program.
Yeah, well, we've had this conversation before. For me, science by its very definition is diverse. Mm-hmm. The more people from different backgrounds, ethnicities, girls, boys, whatever, that come into this and come together, that is what makes science amazing.
Yeah.
You need all of those backgrounds and all those thoughts and opinions to really have a really great kind of way to approach things in the world.
Yeah.
With science.
Yeah. 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 And one of the other things about science that I love is that it treats us all the same.
It does.
Science affects all and reminds us that we're all part of one beautiful human family.
Yes, absolutely. Very well said.
Yeah. Jennifer, remind us where we can go to find out more about Space Care and all the other amazing books that you have brought into the world.
So you can find all of my books on my website, jenniferswansonbooks.com. You can get Space Care requested at your library, or you can also buy it on Amazon and Bookshop and all of those fun things. And also I invite you to check out my podcast, which I started originally with Jed, called Solve It for Kids. We are at solveitforkids.com or wherever you find any of your amazing podcasts.
And I do still have a presence, and if you can figure out what that presence is and send me an email, I'll send you a virtual hug.
That would be amazing. Yes, I do know what your presence is, but I'm curious to see if anybody else recognizes it.
We had a great time speaking about Space Care, the brand new book from our friend, the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson. Hey, Jen, thanks for being back with us.
Oh, it's always a delight to be here, Jed. Thank you for asking.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Kim Johnson. She'll be here to celebrate Invisible Sun. That's the next episode of the podcast. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we're going to start by thanking our guest, our Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, the Admiral of Adventure, Jennifer Swanson. Please be sure to check out Space Care. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Monica Sosa, Madison Dieris, Soji Franklin, and O'Leary. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking through the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.